Tonight, live from New York City, D.I.R. Broadcasting presents a very special evening with Mick Jagger. I'm Mark McEwen, and Mick Jagger is in our New York studio now with rock journalist Lisa Robinson. In this exclusive live broadcast, Mick will talk to Lisa about his own music, his image, his relationship with the Rolling Stones, and his personal life. Tonight's live satellite broadcast with Mick Jagger is proudly sponsored by the #1...
Hi, I'm Lisa Robinson.
And I'm Mick Jagger.
And we're live in New York City, where for the next hour and a half, we're going to talk to Mick about his thoughts on rock and roll and on sex, and his hopes, plans, dreams, and ambitions, and, of course, his music. We're also going to make phone calls to 12 lucky listeners around the country who won a phone call from Mick Jagger in contests run by their local radio stations. But before we do, let's hear some of the music from Mick's first solo album, She's the Boss. You know, I think there's a feeling out there sometimes with some people that you're a lead vocalist, which means you're the singer, you come in, you do the songs, and you go home. As opposed to being a musician, you know, it's not as if you never wrote a song before. You have written much of the Rolling Stones music, but did you feel that this solo album gave you an opportunity, or you needed to do it to get a certain kind of musical credibility?
No. Right. I mean, that's not really the reason to do it. You know, to say, hey, you know, look at me. I'm, you know, I need to do this to be credible. I don't think I need to prove that really. Yeah, if people want to perceive you as a lead vocalist, that's really what I am. That's one of my main points. Of, you know, standing up there, and that's what people perceive of you. You know, that's what I stand up there, dressing up and singing.
You also do a tremendous amount of the work in terms of arranging and producing and making of the records over the years. This wasn't actually the first time you ever did that.
No, so production. I've been in production. Keith and I have done. Well, we had producers, but not for quite a while, and we've done nearly all the production on it, which is a lot of boring work as well. It's not very. There's not very much fun. A lot of it because it's very repetitive. You know, all the mixing and adding and overdubbing. It can be really dull. But in the end, you know, someone's got to do it.
Were you bored with the Rolling Stones?
No, not bored with the Rolling Stones. I think the Rolling Stones are a great band, and we're back in the studio in Paris, recording another Stones album, and I can't wear these cans anymore. Can anyone still go?
Well, you'll have to when we get the phone call.
Yeah. So listen, yes, I think that you know, it's fun to just do other things after being 22 years with one band. I think, you know, it's no problem to go out and do something on your own. It's no longer when you're 19, you got to pool and live together all in the same flat or something. So I think it's good to get out and do things. And when you come back to a band like the Stones, you can like feel, you can bring things back with you that you've learned from that. You know, especially I think in production and stuff that I've learned outside on this record, as well as, you know, obviously in picking up bits and pieces from lyrics and playing and songwriting and stuff.
The first phone call we have is Joe from Cleveland. Joe, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Just about. Speak up, Joe. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Joe, what do you want to ask Mick?
Mr. Jagger.
Yeah, hi.
Hello. First, I must say, really enjoying the solo album.
Thank you. I can hardly hear you, Joe. You've got to speak up a bit.
Okay. Especially, I'm enjoying, my personal favorite would be Lucky in Love.
Oh, that's great. I like that one too.
Okay.
You sound like you're coming from the moon.
No.
You're in Cleveland, right?
I'm in Cleveland.
Are you in that rainstorm? Remember you told me that you saw the Stones once perform in a stadium in the middle of a thunderstorm. It sounds like it's a thunderstorm there now.
No, actually, the weather here is very invitable. I recommend it.
Joe, we can hear you a little better now if you just want to sort of shout.
Oh, okay.
Ask Mick what question you wanted to ask him.
Okay, thank you. I've got kind of a two-parter here for you.
Oh, yeah?
I'd like to ask you that my personal invitation for you, a couple of your friends, to join me and one or two of my buddies for a few days of trout fishing and partying in the Allegheny Mountains. On the river. You know.
That's very nice. That's very nice of you, Joe. I've got to tell you, I'm the world's worst fisherman.
Well, you know, we'll just do a little more partying then, you know.
Well, last time I went out fishing in this lake in in Texas somewhere, and I just tangled my line up and the fish hook went in the guy's knee in the water. I don't know if you're ready for that in your lake. Is that a lake you're going fishing in?
No, there'd be creeks and streams.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different. You know, I'll tell you what, you can bring your wine, and I'll bring your pole and everything else you're going to need, you know.
Yeah. Oh, well, it sounds really nice. Wait till it warms up a bit. Maybe I'll take you up on the offer.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Lisa has my number there.
Okay.
You know,
It's a walking telephone. Yeah.
Well, then, you give me a call. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Joe. The next caller is Cindy Lott from Dallas, Texas. Cindy, are you on the line?
Yes, I sure am.
Cindy told me that she was always has been a big Stones fan, but she lost all of her Stones albums when she got divorced because her husband took them.
Oh, well, he ran away with all the stuff. I'm taking the Stones albums, and you can have, Bruce Springsteen.
He took it all from me. I have to start all over again, Mick.
Cindy, what do you want to ask Mick?
Well, Mick, my question to you is if you were to have a personal goal other than music, what would it be?
That's a really tough one, isn't it? I think when you're at school, and I was at school, all I wanted to do, my personal goals were very simple. They were like, get rich quick, get a beautiful girlfriend, more than one, if possible, and a big flashy car, right? So, when I sort of grew up a bit from that, and I managed to earn enough money to buy the flashy car and see if I can get the beautiful girl and see what I could do with that. And then,
Have you set a new goals now that the times have changed?
yeah, well, I think as you get sort of out of that sort of immature sort of thing about just wanting material things, the goals become very kind of non-specific, and to a certain extent, you can aim sort of higher and higher for your goals, but you still have got to live day by day, and seeing that you can say, well, I'd like to, be a sort of good person. I want to be kind to people, and I don't want to be mean all the time and sort of lose my temper. And I still want to do well in my work. And I still, I think however my life goes on, whatever my work is, and most of my work's in music. I still really want it. My goals are still very much the same. I want to do better and better and to make really good music that I enjoy and other people like. And apart from those things, they're professional things that I still think very much of. And my personal goals in life are kind of very hazy, to be honest. I think most people's are. I'm not going to turn around to you and say, well, I'd like to make another $10 million this week or something. And, I just take life day by day.
Great, I think that's how we all do it, Mick.
Mick, most of the songs on She's the Boss are about sex or love or power struggles between the sexes, love affairs. Is this really the major part of your life?
Well, it was obviously when I wrote it. I didn't realise it was so heavy sexual thing as you seem to have. Maybe it's the way you're interpreting it. No, but there's plenty of. It is a bit sort of battle of the sexes in a way. It's not all of it.
I've also interpreted it a bit sort of more tongue-in-cheek. A lot of the critics and a lot of the reviews of the album get a bit heavy and analytical into sort of, women as having power and this whole sort of...
Well, journalists have to fill up pages, as you should know.
Yes, this is definitely true. But do you think that women have power over you?
Not that more than over me than anybody else, but they exert a fascination. I think that they're a very important part of people's lives. The opposite sex or whatever sexuality is an important part of people's lives, and it's fascinating for people that write songs. For some reason, it seems to be one of the major things. I mean, it's nice to go off that subject, though. I mean, I like to get away from it occasionally, but on this album, I seem to have really jumped in with both feet and just sort of taking that subject I'm mixing my metaphors terribly, and
in your teeth.
In my teeth,
yes,
and worried it to death. But I like writing songs with this subject in mind. But I dare say the next songs that I write are going to be
serious political problems.
Serious political problems. And
famine and so forth.
famine and shoes.
Shoes. Oh, we'll get to shoes later. Meanwhile, we have Tony Panto on the phone from Philadelphia, one of the contest winners. Tony, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, Tony.
How you doing, Mick?
Pretty good, Tony.
Great album.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Great.
Mick, what I want to know is, through the years, how have you sustained so much energy, in your performances? It's just continually great.
Well, I don't know. I feel something. When I was starting off, right, it was like I always felt when I got on stage I was just about to sort of explode. But in those days you had 2 foot to explode in, and 10 minutes to do it in. So that it was very, in a way, it's a bit frustrating. And all I could do was just sort of spin round and sort of, if you jumped up in the air, you'd hit your head on the ceiling, like in those little clubs. And then, as it went on and you got to go to bigger stages, the first time we played at a big stage, I couldn't believe it, and I looked round, instead of Keith hitting me over the head with his guitar, he was miles away. And that was a bit scary at first. But, the energy comes, I don't know, the energy really comes from inside you, as a performer, you want to you get such a buzz just thinking about the fact that you're going to do it. If I wasn't tied to this microphone now, I think I want to move about in here, but it's and then the audience gives you that buzz. You go out there and they're all sort of buzzing away, and even if they don't even like you, but you're still very aware that there's people out there, and you go, oh, I've got to do my best, and you tend to, it just gets the adrenaline rush going, and your whole body chemistry probably changes, I think that's really all that rush and energy comes from.
Tony, thank you. The next caller we have is Steve Morswick from Seattle. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Steve.
Oh, hi, Mick. How's it going?
Pretty good. Where's you calling from? Seattle?
Seattle.
Yes.
You coming to Seattle this summer?
Oh, well, maybe we will. Yeah, I like it out there.
Yeah, come here and do about 4 shows.
Okay.
Okay, my question is that Chrissy Hines and Pat Benatar both have kids. They're going to take their kids on the road. And now that you're a father again, I wonder how you'll handle this. I wonder if you'll take your little girl on the road.
No way. I can't stand it. The idea, I think it's awful. To take kids on the roads, it's something that people did in the 60s. I think that's when I first saw it, with this sort of caravan of hippies, with their long hair and the babies on the back and strapped in the front, and they would take them on stage, I think it's a nightmare. And I wouldn't, it's a nightmare for me, and it would be a nightmare for the little kid as well, especially if they're really young. Who wants to fly every day? It's very bad for kids to fly every day and in and out. They don't know where they are. No, what a nightmare. I don't think I would, Tony. Thanks for calling.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Bye.
The windows are all closed. Hang on a minute.
In your flat?
In my flat.
And it gives you a headache?
It gives me a headache.
All right. Well, I don't know what my excuse is. Listen,
Got your period.
When you decided to do this album, why didn't you do something completely different? Or rather than making a rock and roll album?
Yeah.
This could kind of lend itself to people saying, oh, he sounds better with Keith or whatever. Why didn't you do something totally different?
Well, I could have done, covers of old Beach Boys records.
Oh, who did that?
I don't know. The one with the nice... Yeah. Well, I think for this first album, I'd written this bunch of songs, and it's really, the songs in a way dictate to a certain extent the feel of what I wanted to do. And I was getting my feet wet a bit, I was maybe a little bit cautious. I didn't want to go over the top totally, and I wanted to do what's basically a rock album. But I think the next solo album I do...
you go over the top.
Will be slightly more over the top. I've got this out of the way. And,
what would that mean, over the top?
Well, a bit more... not every track, but if you've got some stuff just a bit more strange, not quite so mainstream rock.
You once said to me that you thought rock and roll was a minor art form. Did you ever feel that you sort of been wasting your life in a minor art form?
Instead of a major art form? Well, I'm never going to be a classical piano player or any classical anything, so I was pretty lucky to get as far as a minor art form as far as I'm concerned.
To get to the top of a minor art form.
A minor art form is pretty good.
Well, we've got Craig Drawn from Raleigh, Durham on the phone. Craig, are you there?
I can hardly hear you.
You can hardly hear me. Can you hear me now?
No.
Craig had to make a run, I think, for you own a donut shop, don't you, Craig?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you manage to go and make the delivery and get back in time for this phone call?
Just barely.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad you're there. Can you ask Mick your question?
Sure.
Hi.
Mick,
yeah.
let me ask you, how would you feel about doing more movies in the future?
Oh, I'd love to do more movies, it's pretty tough, you know. There's so many actors in the world. There's a million actors out there, and half of them are out of work, or more than half of them are out of work, and they have to take any work they can get. So it's pretty tough. You know, I get offered these strange sort of horror films, you know, where I play a bit part where I'm a bird that changes into a snake, you know, and then suddenly appears in the middle of and most of it I won't get offered is garbage, and but I hope, you know, after I've done this present Stones album, I've done some work with the Stones, that if there is, you know, I think with movies you've got to you can't just expect to get a great script. You've got to start from the bottom and get your own stories and work them up and to a certain extent control some of the project yourself, and I think that is really the way to do something good. Meanwhile, you know, I'm really happy to just do sort of bits and pieces here and there if there's time to do them and if they're fun. But I do really love just acting, even though it means being ordered around by people. I quite enjoy that rather than ordering other people about.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Nick, was that the new mix on the 12-inch?
Yeah, it was a 12-inch. It was the short version of the 12-inch.
The short version of the 12-inch.
Not the instrumental.
Nick, you know, there's a lot of interest in the 60s. There really is. And I just was always thinking that there was this division between the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. You know, the Beatles were considered sort of the good ones and the Rolling Stones were the bad ones. Was it really like that in your minds at the time, or was it just sort of a good gimmick to one-up the Beatles?
Actually, they were nasty, sort of abrasive little buggers, really. I mean, John Lennon was the rudest person I'd ever met. I mean, wonderfully rude. I mean, to journalists like yourself. I mean, they would just quake in front of him. And, I mean, he was really acid, acerbic little bugger. But, I mean, they got away with it for years, you know, about, oh, what nice people, when they were being so filthy and rude to everyone. So, as far as we're concerned, it was like a hoax.
Also, you were considered sort of outlaw, you know, or there was that urinating against the wall of a gas station.
Yeah,
you haven't done that in quite some time.
Well, I have, but just no one watches me.
Do you think that it was more fun living then than now? I mean, not just because you were younger, but because the 60s was sort of like a big party.
I think that people that are young, really young now, sort of teenagers now, that it's a sort of golden era for them. I mean, people that in their late 20s, they know it was sort of not particularly sort of bullshit. In that very young people think that it was a wonderful golden era, and to work certainly was fun. I mean, there's no doubt it was really fun, but I mean, I prefer the present to the past.
Without being too serious about it, though, there have been a lot of books written about the 60s, books written about the Stones, books about yourself. With all that nostalgia, I mean, are you aware of your place in history with that? I know that sounds very serious. Are you proud of what you've done with the Stones? Come on, seriously.
I'm proud. Yeah, sure, I'm proud of it. I mean, I'm very proud of all the things that we did we're talking about that era. Yeah, I am.
Let's go to the telephone. We have another call.
Yeah, we've already been on WMMS in Cleveland, Q102 in Dallas, WMMR in Philadelphia, KZOK in Seattle, G105 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Where's this from?
This call is from Chicago. It's Nicole Farrell listening on WLS. Nicole, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Oh, I am fine.
Good.
First of all, I'd like you to know that this is my dream. Talking to you is my main goal in life, and you are fulfilling it.
Well, that's nice to know. Is it cold down in the Windy City?
No.
No?
In fact, it was warm today. Okay, I have two real quick questions to ask you. Okay, the first one is, during what period of your life do you feel you made the most significant contribution to music, and why?
Well, I suppose in the very, very early days, when we came to America, and we were going to Chicago. This is quite particularly apropos of where you come living now. We were like a band that sort of they said we brought coals to Newcastle. In other words, we were a very serious blues band to a large degree, and we were coming back, and we came back to Chicago and Detroit, and none of the people that we met were interested in the blues. And we said, how can they not know about it? I mean, they're living here, and all these people are playing in these little clubs like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Little Walter and all these people we'd loved for years. How come they don't know? By making people aware, to a large extent, of music, American music, that they weren't aware of. So I think that was one of the times that we really made a contribution. We made other contributions, but that was a significant one.
Nicole, did you have something else you wanted to ask Mick?
Yes, just real quick. I know that you're touring this summer, and I want to ask you about backstage passes and how to get one.
Yeah, okay. Lisa's got several in her
Well,
pocket.
yes, they've got these roadies. They have these roadies that go into the audience, you see, and they take the girls that they... No, we're just joking. That's another band.
Oh, it's awful. Lisa is sending one.
Nicole, thanks a lot. The next caller is Roger Wright from Washington, D.C. He's listening on WWDC-FM. That's DC 101.
Hi, Roger.
How you doing, Mick?
Pretty good.
All right, I'm calling from Rockville, Maryland.
Uh-huh.
How you doing?
Very well.
All right. If you ever had the chance to do your whole career all over again, would you? And what changes would you have made?
You know that old song, like, je regretteria. You know, people always say, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd do it all over again. Obviously, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, you'd want to change everything. You know, you'd say, well, you know, what did I go out with that girl for that week? You know, I could have gone out with another girl that week. That was a nightmare. What did I do? What did I do? Go and get arrested, get thrown in jail? That wasn't much fun. You know, I would have liked to have lived without some of those bits. But, I mean, basically, I think that I had a lot of fun, so it's stupid to sort of hypothesize about it. But, you know, there's some few things that would have changed, but I still love what I'm doing, and I wouldn't have changed it totally.
Roger, thanks a lot.
Thanks. It's tough.
It is. You've always been Mick Jagger, but when you became famous, you became Mick Jagger, like with, you know, capital letters. What was that like for you when you first got famous? How did you act differently? Did you act like an idiot?
It's stupid. I mean, yeah. Well, when you get famous, like, you know, when you kind of, now I'm famous, because you got this little line in a music paper written about you, one line and mentions your name, and I say, oh yeah, I'm Mick Jagger, great, you know, Taxi, you know who I am, you know, I'm Mick Jagger, you know, I made a record, you know, no one's bought it, I mean, but, you know, you're so full of yourself, it's ridiculous. I mean, your head, you know, you can see people like that, you know, like...
Was there ever a time when some girl or some boy didn't recognize you and it annoyed you?
Well, yes, at this point, we were just mentioning, you know, because like, what do you do for this? They say, oh, hello, what do you do? What do you mean? How can they not know?
I love that, actually, don't you? I think that's fabulous.
At the beginning, you think everyone knows who you are, which is stupid, isn't it?
Well, you know, you do intimidate people. I have seen grown men act like total idiots in your presence. Oh, who intimidates you?
Everyone has a go. Not many people. I don't get browbeaten that easily.
Is it different for you now, when you were first sort of a star? You know, you really can't get away with anything. I mean, you can't turn 40 or 50 or anything without the world sitting up and taking notice.
But you can do other things and you keep it quiet, I think. You're not perhaps in a big American city. Well, maybe you can. I think I get away with murder, actually.
Do you? What? What sort of things do you get away with?
Just hanging out. You know, people don't really know what you're doing. It's a myth. It's a myth.
What did you spend your first royalty check on?
A car.
Really? What kind?
A Ford. An old Ford Zephyr, I think. I think that's what I did.
We're going to talk to Connie Greenstein now from WNEW.
Oh,
What a delight it is talking to you, Mick.
Well, that's very nice of you. It's a nice... were you in a phone box around the corner?
Well, Ozone Park.
What were you going to mention?
I'd like to know when you got your first big break in your career.
When? Oh,
Yeah.
I think the first break really is like when you get your first record contract. Hey, you know, because before that you can play in clubs and bars and be locally popular, but convincing these people at record company that just because when you get up on stage everyone goes crazy, that doesn't mean to say that you can sing, you know, on a record. And people used to say, well, he can't really sing, can he? That's what he used to say about me. And there's this in the BBC in England. They said, no, well, we love the group, but he's awful. He's useless. He can't sing, so we'd love to have him, but goodbye, you know. But we got this record contract, and I think that's, you know, after that, it was relatively easy. But it was hard to get record contracts in those days. Now it's a bit easier.
Thanks, Connie.
Thanks, Connie. Okay, butt was getting what? Bigger and bigger?
Yeah.
Her butt?
I should say getting bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Her butt was getting what?
It was getting bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger.
I think we're on the air. You've been considered this sex symbol for 20 years. Do you think you're sexy?
Well, it's not a very good song title, but relatively.
Is it something that you feel you have to live up to? Is it expected of you, or does it just come naturally?
I think that if you meet a girl and if you're useless in bed, whether you're a sex symbol or not, you're going to be a bit of a disappointment, aren't you?
Listen, were you ever in pain from wearing really tight pants on stage?
Yeah.
In the early years when you wore tight pants on stage.
Yeah, I don't. It's better not to wear any, actually. But no, I don't think it's a big problem, Lisa. Where'd you get that one from?
Do you worry about what you look like when you're not on stage? Do you think you're vain?
I don't wear makeup very often when I'm not on stage, so that probably... I went out with this Nick Rhodes in Paris when I was there last week.
From Duran Duran?
Yeah, and we went out to dinner, that's all, and this old lady, and he was... Makeup was about half an inch thick. He looked all right. I mean, it looked all right on him. But, I mean, he was we were off duty, so to speak.
Well, you're off duty now. You're wearing a white wool sweater, and under it you have a very smart grey and white striped T-shirt. You never wanted to go on stage just wearing sort of street things. You always said you wanted to have a stage persona.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say you can't wear street clothes on stage, but I find that most street clothes on stage are kind of like the wrong colour, or they're too hot, or you can't move in them, like regular clothes, they stretch or they split,
What do you think of Prince's clothes? Have you seen the current show?
Well, speaking of, we're going tomorrow night.
Wait till you see the shoes. The shoes are very major. Well, it's a very high instep, and they look extremely uncomfortable. Like
Chinese, like women, they used to put them in those...
Bind them up. They're sort of all gnarled and everything. They probably have to slice them off afterwards.
Well, I'll tell you about it when I can see him tomorrow night. It should be a bit of a laugh.
Do you exercise a lot?
No.
Have you ever thought of having any cosmetic surgery?
No. Have you?
No, I don't know. Maybe we'll go in together.
Oh, no way. I'm not going in there with you.
You told me once that you never listened to Rolling Stones albums. Why?
That's not true. But it's not... It's
not true that you don't, or that you said
true that I don't. Not true that I said it. No, yeah, I do. But it's not that... I don't get up in the morning and put on between the buttons. But no, I like to listen to them, from time to time. But it's not something... I don't think artists sort of do that very often. I mean, yeah, there's no taboo on them. But it's not something you want to leap on the turntable.
You don't make your friends sit down at parties and listen to them.
Do you remember this one? Yeah, you can actually. It's quite nice sometimes if you find an old one in the thing you haven't heard before. That can be fun. But don't put on Jumping at Flash at parties.
We've got Gene Ditter from San Francisco, who's listening on KFOG on the telephone. Gene, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Gene.
Hi, man.
Oh, I thought it might be a boy Gene, and it's a girl Gene.
Oh, yeah, girl.
Yeah, hi. So what's happening in San Francisco?
Things are great in San Francisco. It's really nice here.
So what were you going to say about?
Well, what I wanted to ask you about was what kinds of things you spend your time on when you're not working on your music. And I'd especially like to ask you what kinds of things you like reading, which books or magazines, if you do much reading. And I wondered, too, if you've done much work on computers yet, or if you're planning to.
I'm writing notes. I've got notes on this question.
Okay, the books.
It's a long one. Yeah, well, I do like to read, when I'm not on. I like reading. I love reading magazines, actually. I read all the trashy magazines, and then I say, hey, well, I've got to be serious now. I can't just spend my life reading trashy magazines. And so I read trashy novels. And also I read kind of serious... I'm quite interested in history, so I read quite a lot of... I'm interested now in getting into the 20th century, which I never studied very much, So as we're living in the 20th century, I thought I'd better study it up a bit. And so I've been reading a lot of stuff about that. What were you saying?
Computers.
Was I working on...
If you're planning to.
Was I planning... Yeah, I've got... someone got... Apple Computers gave me that Macintosh computer, which was very nice of them. So I sort of sit around and tap on that. And but I could be quite honest, I don't have that much use for it. At home. In the office, yeah, but not at home.
Gene, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gene.
We're going to talk to Mark Herrick from Boston, Massachusetts, who's listening on WBCN.
No.
Hello?
Hello?
Mark?
Yep.
You're listening on WBCN in Boston, Massachusetts?
Yep.
Nick?
Hi, Mark. How are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Real good?
Yeah, really good. For sitting around in this studio with Lisa. She's kicking me.
Oh.
What were you going to say?
Huh?
What were you going to ask?
I can hardly hear you.
You can't hear me? I can hear you perfectly.
You can?
Yep.
All right, not too long ago, you did a concert in Worcester in a small club,
yeah.
Logan's Cove.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering how you felt about that, if you'll ever do it again.
I remember it was so hot. Whoa. And there was all these people outside and the cops, and it was a bit, I enjoyed it inside though. We did one in London also, similar, at the 100 Club, which was kind of fun, without all the hassles that Worcester was. I like playing in clubs. The only thing about clubs is that you can't really do much of a show. I mean, there's nowhere to sort of... that's really exaggeratedly, you can't do anything. You're just stuck there, and if you move, you're off the stage or into the drum kit. I mean, really what I'd like to do is do like 1,000-seat... kind of little theatres like they have in most big towns. In New York, there's one called the Ritz and whatever. I know there's one in Boston. I can't remember the name offhand. Those are kind of fun to do. It's nice to do a show rather than just do a bar band gig. I'd like to do the sort of combination of doing a smallish place. I mean, compared to a stadium, it can be really fun.
Thanks, Mark. Mick, you do go and see other people's concerts. I know you've seen David Bowie, you've seen the Police, you're going to see Prince. Do you... Or have you ever felt competitive with other lead singers?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's unfortunately in some ways, a very competitive business, this rock and roll thing. It always was. I mean, you talked about the Beatles earlier and all that, but there was a lot of competition in those days, and it still carries on. I mean, I joke about it with people that I know, like David Bowie or whatever, and some people. But of course, when you started off, you take it much more seriously. And now I got to take it with a pinch of salt, and people come and they look at what clothes I'm wearing, they look at the label, or they check out what you're going to do, what music, when you come up, when's your record coming out, and it's very competitive business.
You did say to me that Herman's Hermits had you the most work.
Oh yeah, that was Herman's Hermits. Really, I mean, this is that's why you can't take life too seriously. Herman's Hermits was like the biggest things that sliced. But after the Beatles, it was Herman's Hermits, and after getting the lift, right, and I say, hey, is that Herman? Is that Herman? Hey, now knowing that not very few people know who Herman's Hermits really is anymore, but then they was like forever. And he had he pulled a big Moody one time when we was at it, and they said they'd given us a better dressing room, and it was all a big number. That was Herman's Hermits.
You also said to me that you had started out wanting to be a blues singer and not a rock star.
Yeah, well,
do you feel that you are now? Is there a place for a blues singer anymore?
Well. Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to be, I think absolutely there's a place to be a blues singer. Blues is a very valid thing to be. The Stones was very much a blues band, and even though we started off playing rock and roll as well, we went through a stage of being very purist, and not, we didn't really want to call ourselves even a rock band. We would call that a rhythm and blues band, And so, so that then after that we started playing Beatles numbers. We couldn't really claim to be a blues band anymore permanently.
Mick, we've got Lydell Newby from KMET in Los Angeles on the phone. Lydell, are you there?
Yeah, how you doing, Lisa?
Okay.
Mick.
Hey,
Mick,
Lydell.
Nice to hear you. Hey, I got to tell you first off that there isn't a single album that you've ever been involved in that hasn't been worth buying. You've always had quality music.
Thanks, that's very nice.
You're a fantastic, whatever they said about your singing, it fits with the style of music you do.
My singing,
You're a fantastic singer.
Thanks, Lydell. My head is getting bigger. Go on. Sorry.
My basic question is, you've had such a monstrous success in your 20-plus years, and, you've had such a big influence on a lot of bands throughout the years. How much higher do you think you can go, and where you really want your future in music to take you as far as the style of music that you're going to play?
Yeah, well, that's pretty intelligent. I'm more intelligent than some of Lisa's questions.
Beg your pardon.
No, sorry. Well, it's like, I think that I'd like to carry on exploring different ways with the Stones and creating, keep going and keeping it very kind of earthy kind of music, but just exploring the sort of outer limits of that kind of music, and also just discovering things and keeping your ears open going off into something else that isn't just that basic rock. It's really, I mean, I have hopefully some time to do that, and I just want to continue really doing that to the best of my ability.
Thanks a lot, Lydell. We've got Dennis Cruson, who's listening on WLLZ in Detroit, Michigan, on the phone. Dennis?
Yeah, Dennis. Hi.
Hi, Mick.
How are you, all right?
Oh, all right. How about you?
Pretty good.
All right. Listen, okay, first off, my girlfriend Kathy and my best friend Larry wanted me to say hi.
Okay. Hi.
And second off, out here in Detroit, we think that you're ranked up there with WLLZ and the Tigers.
Okay, thanks, bro.
And now the question.
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering if you think that the video age has affected the Rolling Stones music or your solo album.
Well, I mean, I love making videos. I love watching them. And as far as I'm concerned, when I started doing videos as early as the late 60s, and I started to experiment with videos. And I don't think it changed the music at all, or the attitude to the music, as far as I'm concerned, very, perhaps in the tiniest way. But I just like doing them. I'm not one of these people that sort of poo-poos them. So, I love them.
Thanks a lot, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Nick, one fast question.
Yeah.
Was She's the Boss the album that you heard in your head when you started out? Was it the album that you wanted to make?
Yeah, it's
Do
the
you
album.
love it?
I love it. It's the album I heard in my head, and I heard it, and I tapped my feet, and I heard on the street, and that's the way I like it.
Nick, thanks a lot for
Thanks,
being
Lisa.
with us tonight.
Thank you. Goodbye.